Yeah. I mean, hold on loosely. Wasn't that a 38 special song? Hold on loosely. Isn't that what we're experiencing? I
I
mean,
don't think
here
I have
on
that album in my collection yet.
you don't have 38 special, Chris?
No, I
Oh my
probably should.
gosh.
I'm surprised I don't. It's one of the few I don't have.
Well, Chris obviously is here with us, but thank you, Chris, for interjecting because a lot of people who are joining us hopefully have that album. I was one of my favorite, Hold On Loosely by 38 Special. But don't lose control. And I think that's the theme of it. And here the midterms are slipping away for the Dems. I'm going to say this because you have so many um, people out there declaring victory in the midterms already. And all I have to say, because they're mentioning in regards to all things Minnesota, which Chris and I were just talking before the show began. I have a little interview between I can't remember the young man's name from the University of Alabama, but he's on with another reporter and Harry Sesson, who's a pundit or what I don't know, he's an opinionator, I should say, of the left. But he basically says, Harry, I just have one question. If we're in all 50 states with ICE, why is it that we're only having problems in Minnesota? And I think that is starting to unravel. I believe that you don't even have to comment on social media to all these crazy people because time will tell. We're going to hit upon it today. We've got a lot to cover. In fact, I've got more loaded up. And if you guys are wanting to know what we're going to talk about today, go to my X page, the DPB show. You're going to see it. I've been up through the middle of the night. I'm finding things. It's so amazing how much information's out there. Obviously today, breaking news. They now find that Alex, the gentleman, who died at the hands of ICE, right, wrong, or indifferent. Once again, I'm going to withhold any opinion because ultimately, I haven't even watched the video. I've seen some still frames, but I refuse to watch it because what video are we watching? Who's manufacturing the video? I don't know. Ultimately, at the end of the day, the big news today about Alex is he happened to be involved in another altercation with ICE just a week prior to his death, where he suffered an injury. His rib was broken because he was in the midst of a federal investigation trying to apprehend criminals. So we're going to hit upon that. I've got video and looking forward to it. It's obviously, as I said, more than we can take. Chris, can you believe going from Thursday to Tuesday? I always say, you can't even plan what you're going to talk about on any given day. It would be nice if we could go 5 days a week, Chris. Maybe we will explore doing that and maybe break it up into half-hour segments because you do kind of lose a sense of the news cycle now because it is out of control.
Well, I think they want to confuse you as to what the cycle is. And actually, if you look at it, it's been this immigration rebellion that's been going on for months now. And we've kind of ignored that that's the main theme throughout. So there's different incidents within this rebellion, but it's still the same rebellion. And we're still trying to address it, and we haven't actually addressed it yet.
Good to see you, Pam. Thanks for joining us today here at the DPB show. Thank everyone that's tuning in to the DPB show live Tuesdays and Thursdays on Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, 2 pages on Facebook, my personal page and the DPB show page. And then finally, Rumble, YouTube, X. And so we're here. Go out, like, subscribe, as it says below. Like, comment, share. Speaking of comments, there he is. Ryan, hold on, let me get that comment. If the SAVE Act gets passed, put a fork in the Democrats grabbing any power. Also, Ryan, thank you. The insurgency in Minnesota isn't about immigration enforcement. It's about the fraud, which Chris and I were also talking about. We're going to hit upon that. I've got some more videos. It's interesting that the phone call with both Fry and with Walz took place right after the uncovering of the signal chat where the lieutenant governor is part of his administration is on the same chat that Alex Preddy is on, which once again, folks, these people have opened themselves up. Let me clear something up because I know, Chris, I said that I was going to tell the story about my daughter and our kids. We love them, whether they, and we don't expect them to agree with us all the time. My daughters don't agree with their dad. They love their dad. They don't agree with me. But I gave my daughters the knowledge, I think, that was given to me by one of my favorite people that I've listened to for years and looking forward to when he comes back. And I know there's a lot of detractors about Dan Bongino, but Dan Bongino always had the 24-hour rule, or at least the 48 to 72-hour rule. Do not jump on all of this craziness. In fact, I think maybe that kind of helps us, Chris, right? Because we're not going live every day. So we're not just we're not looking for clicks. We're not trying to get people to tune in. We're giving it some time to simmer. And I told my daughter, honey, I understand this is emotionally upsetting. Anytime you see a video, and because everybody has access to a handheld camcorder, which back in the day, if you could get a camcorder, you obviously had a little money because it was rare that people were out there filming everything, but everything is real-time filming. And she saw the videos of this nurse, because she's a nurse, this nurse of the VA hospital being obviously roughed up by federal agents and then subsequently being shot and killed. And it was very emotional for her and raw, as it should be. By no means am I condoning killing anyone. I mean, I don't want people to die on the streets. But the point being is, she was out just really barraging her social media page with her opinions, which is great. But I told her, I said, honey, let's let time kind of give us a truer picture of what transpired. Like today when CNN broke this story about this particular gentleman, Alex, how he was involved in another incident just a week prior where he was obstructing law enforcement in their job of apprehending bad guys, criminals. So now that's out there. And so now she's got to kind of take a look at that because once again, it's CNN reporting. But more importantly, she also should have waited. And this is my belief. And granted, I appreciate her being passionate about all things. I believe she should have waited because you're going to see, as I told her, and she agreed with me. I said, honey, the FBI and the CIA and organizations and agencies like that take situations and they will know what that guy had to eat on the Tuesday of the fourth month on the second day of any given time. They have that much information. They have dissected it. They know everything about where, if indeed this gun was his, which I guess they have proved that, right? They now have tracked that he was the legal gun owner, which, by the way, as I shared with her, I said, honey, do you realize the gun that he was in possession of? And I'm only going based on, I haven't seen the video, I'm looking at the picture of the gun, is a gun that cost about $2,000. And it had an extension on it. And yours truly, I am a legal gun owner. I have two Smith & Wesson 9mm Easy Shields, and I only get to fire 8 rounds, right? 8 rounds out of each magazine that I have. This gun had the capacity of 21 rounds per magazine. That's 42 rounds that he had the ability, if he were to take that gun out and start shooting. 42 rounds. That is almost similar to the capacity of some rifles that, where you get extended magazines. So the damage that could have been done, it just bodes, everyone, if we really want to do better as Americans, we need to get out of the spin cycle. And that's what this is. We are getting spun around so quick, and we're reacting rather than stepping back and walking this out in a calm manner. Anyhow, that was my.
Well, one of the things that I saw reported is that this guy had actually quit his job as being a nurse.
Yeah.
And that he wanted to work on this full time. I think that's what we're seeing. Is we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, where we had talked about astroturfing and what was happening, and these people are being encouraged to join these groups, and they think that they're protecting human rights, and they think that they're going to change the world, and they're going to bring down the government so that it's a more peaceful place, and they'll allow open borders because we're all world citizens. And a lot of this is being promoted by foreign adversaries. Even Mexico, Peter Schweitzer has a new book out where he talks about how Mexico is infiltrating our country. They have there are different embassies throughout the country, and they're encouraging people to radicalize in Mexico and bring it here, and working on Spanish speaking social media to try and encourage people, because they still see the United States as theirs. Because if you look way back before the 1800s, the Spanish were here, and they had their missions throughout California and Texas and all the other southern states. They still believe that is truly their territory to be taken back into the fold.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up.
For that.
Yeah. I'm glad that you brought that up. And yes, Ryan, I do see you in there. The insurgency in Minnesota isn't about immigration. Yeah, no, I like this comment from Ryan. He says, this was a P320 SIG and can have tendency to fire accidentally as well. I did hear reports of that. But no, Chris, what you are sharing with us is spot on. I don't know if you listened to it. I think I shared a clip with you from Jesse Kelly in regards to another matter as it pertains to what the Democrats are kind of losing control of, which is their electorate, because they only have certain funding mechanisms. They only have certain talking points. But when you talk about the insurgency in our country, I think Jesse hits it on the spot. And I think that let's hear what he has to say in the mass importation. Oop, what's happened? Is he not going? Jesse, what happened? Huh. Jesse, you're not moving. There he is.
The mass importation of foreign barbarians whose loyalty and votes can be purchased with taxpayer money is the central pillar of the communist revolution in every single Western society. They didn't mass import the foreigners into this country because they love some spicy curry. They massively imported these people because it means political power for the communist revolution. I warned you before, I'll warn you again. The propaganda campaign against the mass deportation of foreigners will actually exceed the largest propaganda campaign ever in human history. That would be the COVID hysteria. The propaganda against mass deportation will exceed it. What you are seeing in Minnesota is not this week's story, last week's story. It's not one of these things that's going to come and it's going to go. This is the story that will define the next 3 years of the Trump administration if they don't back off and continue. Why? Because it's everything to the communist revolution in the United States of America. You're looking at a professional communist guerrilla insurgency. We have in the United States of America hostile foreign city-states residing inside of our border. They are in open rebellion against the United States of America. It is the Democrat Party and people who vote Democrat from the highest elected officials on down to the nutball communist street animals out there getting themselves killed. It is professional, it is organized, and they are after you.
They are after all of us, Chris. So
I'm really fired up today, though. You gotta give me a minute here to talk about this.
Okay.
Mexico has 53 consulates in the United States.
I saw that. More than China, right?
More than China. Well, and China has a ton. They even had police stations here. The first thing that Biden did, because he was bought off by the Chinese, was to tell the FBI, stop investigating those Chinese police stations and stop investigating the theft of intellectual property. All those things were together. Then you add to that the birthright issue. What's happening is the Chinese are sending over people to have children here. It's estimated that over the last 10 years, they've had roughly 100,000 U.S. citizens born to Chinese women a year. So what does that look like? So now we're up to 1 million if it's 10 years. By the time they get to 18, they're going to be able to come here and vote. Well, how close was the election when Biden got? They put those people in swing states, and they can choose the candidate of their dream.
Well, Biden did get 81 million votes.
Well, he did, but he still only won the swing states by 10,000.
He didn't win by very much, but he did get the most votes of any presidential election in the history of the United States.
Not there, yeah. So none of that makes any sense. So yeah, it's China, it's Mexico, it's it's a lot of these countries that are trying to pull this number on us.
So I usually don't dig into the archives and grab a video, but I think it's so fitting. And I think this young lady says it better than anyone else, when we look specifically at this anomaly, because it is, once again, 50 states, ICE is doing what Donald Trump was elected, campaigned on closing the border and deporting, right? Obama still far succeeds Trump in mass deportation. But why is it? And all of this is planned. It's actually constructed. It's walked out. They have put this into action, like Jesse Kelly was saying. But specifically as it pertains to you and me, the people of the United States of America, how so many people are getting baited. And I know that this video is a little longer, but I think this young lady does a very good job of explaining, and I don't want to lose sight of the fact that all deaths, as I said to my daughter, I asked her, I said, honey, this is real simple. That how many people were killed in the United States of America yesterday? She said, well, I don't know, Dad. What does that have to do with it? I said, well, take a guess. I mean, was it 50? Was it 100? Was it 200 people? Why is it we're only talking about one person who lost their life? You said he shouldn't have had to die. I said, well, all those people that were killed based on gun crimes probably shouldn't have had to die.
By itself every weekend.
That's right.
Every weekend, 10 times that many. If
well,
not,
and
30.
So this young lady, I put this up. I think I shared this, Chris, right? Yep. I shared this gal before. I want to play this again because I want you to really listen to what she has to say. She hits it. Oh, hold on. I got her muted.
Wrong. And it is beyond tragic. Everyone obviously has an opinion on this. And I commented on a post where someone said, Renee could have been any one of us. And I simply said, could have never been me because I don't interfere with federal ICE enforcement. I cited U.S. code and predictably I got dragged in the comments. ICE hates you. You're justifying murder. They didn't have a warrant. She had a right to flee. You're next. It was all expected. But guys, ICE agents are federal officers, and under federal law, specifically 18 U.S. Code sections 111 and 372, assaulting, resisting, impeding, or conspiring to interfere with a federal officer doing their job is a crime. That includes blocking them, chasing them, surrounding them, or physically interfering with their operation. Should that get someone shot? No. But can it escalate into deadly consequences? Clearly, yes. And that is a risk far too many civilians are being convinced to take right now. Someone is dead, and that is horrific, no matter how you spin it. The investigation will determine exactly what happened, but people can debate video angles and split-second decisions and alleged ties to ICE watch groups all day long. But regardless of the details of this case, the fact that groups like this exist at all, encouraging civilians to track and confront federal agents, should terrify us. We've normalized the idea that suburban moms can grab their phone, hop in their Kia Telluride.
I'm gonna hit pause there for a second, Chris.
Yep.
That's the one thing she says in this video. You can debate the angles, the pictures. Did he draw his pistol? And at that point, Alex had not been shot in Minnesota. This is just speaking specifically of Renee Good. But that point right there, it should terrify us as American citizens to know that this insurgency, this invasion, what you're talking about, the amount of involvement from foreign nations in our cities, and these groups are, as you said, they had Chinese police departments in Manhattan. Who are they arresting? What gives them even jurisdiction to have a Chinese police department?
Well, they're arresting other Chinese citizens who are stepping out of line or not doing what the bidding of the CCP, Communist Party there, Chinese Communist Party. So I see Ryan's comment, and while the fraud is bad, it's a sideshow to the immigration problem. As we stated, is that using China is using our own laws against us to infiltrate our system and have undue influence over our political system. That's pretty, compared to fraud, that's a very serious issue and leads to really bad things. So I'm not so sure that I'm in agreement with that, and I hate to disagree with somebody who's a loyal listener, but
no, you can disagree with Ryan. I disagreed with Ryan very often. I made him defend it. It's just, and Chris,
exactly.
you can disagree with me too, because obviously this show is it is the DPB show, but I'm not here like my daughter. I want to hear differing opinions. I believe all of us should have civilized discourse and discussions, because it's the only way we're going to learn and we're going to grow, because you bring a whole different perspective than Ryan. You bring a whole different perspective than myself.
Well, the minute I disagree with Ryan, he says something that I have to agree with, which was a failure, which was something that the previous video, she mentioned another falsehood that a lot of lefties think is accurate, that these illegal aliens have the same rights as citizens. They don't. Under the Constitution, they don't have the same rights and the 14th Amendment was one of those amendments that it's part of it. It defines who is a citizen, especially after the Civil War. So a lot of these things are related, and the search and seizure thing doesn't apply to them. So that's why they don't have to have the same level of documentation and judges agreeing with the writing warrants and all that stuff. That's you got three laughy faces from
I saw that. Ryan. Okay, let's I want to hear out this young lady, because I think it's fascinating. Sure. Let's get her the rest of her comment, her video, because I think it hits upon some issues.
And pull alongside an active enforcement operation against trained agents with guns, and somehow expect to walk away untouched because someone told them that that's activism. That is insane. This lie is pushed by people who benefit from chaos, media outlets doing it from behind cozy desks, chasing outrage and headlines, politicians doing it from comfortable offices, chasing votes, and loud and wrong content creators doing it from behind their phones, chasing clicks, with no understanding of the law they're encouraging others to break. They're using compassionate people as fuel. You don't have to like ICE. You don't have to support immigration enforcement. But deporting people who are here illegally is not new. It has existed under every administration, including Obama, our deporter in chief. What is new is convincing everyday civilians, moms in their cars, bystanders in the street, that stepping between an armed federal officer and his mission is smart, righteous, or consequence-free. That is not bravery. That is not activism. That is delusion. And it has now gotten someone killed. Political battles belong in elections, courts, and legislatures, not in the streets. And for the love of God, please stop letting people who profit from outrage convince you to risk your life for their headlines.
I think that in of itself is so pertinent. Stop letting people, and it's sad because you see, I believe, and Trump even mentioned this in Iowa. I just saw a clip, and I'm not going to pull it up because I've got so much more to share with you, and we're not going to get it all in already during the course of this hour today. But Trump said this about Renee Good. He said, Renee's parents, it's horrific that she was shot and then subsequently died. She was killed. I mean, no ifs, ands, buts, but obviously the investigation and all that will eventually play itself out. But I didn't realize this little fact. I guess Renee's parents were Trump supporters, which really, like you said, a bad situation now even becomes worse because her parents supported yours truly. And he said, I don't know what happened to Renee. Obviously, she was radicalized, which is the saddest thing about people right now. They truly believe in some instances, as this young lady just pointed out, that this is activism, that breaking federal laws somehow is justified because someone told you that you can get away with breaking the law and not experience any consequences, which, Chris,
Well,
you and I were talking about that. It's true, right? You can break the law. And obviously, we're seeing plenty of people break the laws lately and not have immediate consequences for their
right.
actions.
Well, you have the Latin King leader who put a bounty on Bovine. Is that his name? The guy,
Bovino.
And the jury said, whatever. We like this guy. He's free to go. Acquitted him. So, when you have the judges ruling in these cases and you have the judge saying that, well, some of the people we can let go who invaded the church and go on and on and on, all these things. I think that what we're seeing here is what really worked in the Vietnam War is being recycled here again. And quite frankly, what they want is they want these people to be killed by police officers. They see Kent State as their model because they think that was the turning point in the argument over the Vietnam War. People don't realize that before these National Guard people didn't just show up and start shooting college kids for the fun of it. What happened was, up to that point, they were burning down buildings on the campus, literally burned down the ROTC building, and were attempting to burn down other buildings. And so they had to bring in the National Guard to stop this violent protest. But all you saw in the press was these hippies putting flowers in National Guard's guns and stuff and pretending that it was a peaceful protest again. That's the theme that just keeps coming up over and over again. Peaceful protest, peaceful protest. Meanwhile, they're bringing guns. They're throwing ice bottles at the officers. and
They're throwing weapons. They're
guns or
projectiles. Things that can
projectiles
hurt. Yes.
and cars and all these other things. Oh, that's so peaceful, but it's not. If they were peaceful, is the people that were arrested and thrown in jail for saying prayers in front of abortion centers. That's peaceful protest.
81-year-old lady arrested.
Yeah,
and obviously
exactly.
serving
So
time.
there is no comparison. There should be no real sympathy for these people. I mean, I hate to see that people get killed, but they're bringing it on themselves. They might as well be jumping off buildings.
Yeah. So I'm setting up this clip. Obviously, it says, "Holy smokes, just a week before Alex Preddy was shot by border agents while armed, he had a violent altercation with federal agents in Minneapolis, got tackled and injured his rib. Preddy was an active ICE hunter and known menace. Then he shows up armed and lost his life." Imagine that. This entire network needs to be dismantled, and its organizers in prison. They are throwing their own people to meat grinders, which is so
Well, it's
consistent.
basically suicide by cop. It really is.
Well, it is. So, and I mean, and so for you out there watching, obviously, this is CNN. You're right. It's so if they're breaking this news today, something is happening out there. And here it is.
CNN is learning that Alex Preddy had a physical encounter with federal agents about a week before he was shot and killed by law enforcement. Sources tell CNN that Preddy broke a rib when a group of federal officers tackled him while he was protesting. Priscilla Alvarez is breaking that story for us. What else are you hearing, Priscilla?
Dana, we're learning more details along with my colleague Jeff Winter about what exactly transpired a week before Alex Preddy was shot in Minneapolis and died this past weekend. Now, in this earlier incident, he stopped his car after observing ICE agents chasing what he described as a family on foot and began shouting and blowing his whistle. Preddy later told one of these sources that 5 agents tackled him and one leaned on his back, appearing to leave him with a broken rib. According to this source, and I'm quoting here, that source said, quote, "That day he thought he was going to die." Now, Preddy was later given medication that is consistent with treating a broken rib, according to records reviewed by CNN. Sources also say that he was known to federal law enforcement, though it's unclear whether it was this incident or another with federal agents that they knew of him. It's also unclear whether the officers who tackled him on Saturday knew who he was. What we do know, however, is that federal immigration officers have been collecting personal information of protesters and agitators within the context of what the Department of Homeland Security has warned is repeated threats towards officers as they are conducting immigration enforcement operations. In fact, just Tuesday, the department also publicized an online tip form to share information about people allegedly harassing ICE officers. We've also heard Tom Homan, the White House border czar, say that a database would be created for those who are arrested for impeding law enforcement. But thus far, in our queries to the Department of Homeland Security, they have said that no such database exists.
Unbelievable. There's a lot more to peel back there. Thank you so much for bringing us that news, Priscilla.
There she is, upset. Unbelievable that they're keeping a database of criminals. What is with that? I mean,
well, is she saying unbelievable?
Present yourself as a criminal and interfering with police and law enforcement. Of course, you're going to be part of the database.
Well, but I don't know if Dana Bash was actually saying incredible to the database as much as she was saying, see, this is symbolic, as you were talking about. Not only the people that they're gathering information, which they should. If you're throwing rocks or projectiles, or you're putting another human being who is a law enforcement officer at risk of bodily injury, then yes, you need to be put on a watch list of some sort. And I'm going to get to one. This is really big, Chris. This video of this attorney general candidate, I don't know if you saw this, out of Ohio. Hold on.
Okay,
but let me finish.
I'm ready.
Let me finish this thought. Okay. So I think that, like COVID, when these people were just so bloodily wrong about everything, whether it was 6 foot, 3 foot, whether it was, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, that they didn't work, whether it was the whole bleach uh, hoax that they came up with, the president saying people should drink bleach. Bottom line is these people were wrong then. They were wrong about Russia. They were wrong about collusion. They were wrong about Hunter Biden's laptop. These people haven't been right about anything. They're wrong about Nixon.
They weren't wrong. They were intentionally misleading people. There's a big difference. I mean, if you accidentally get something wrong, well, that's human life. Nobody's perfect. But when they're intentionally lying to you to sell a story, that's a whole difference.
And it is learned.
Okay, so Chris, I said I'm not going to play
Ready.
it. I'm going to get this out. This guy, I sound like Scott Robbins there from Markley Van Kankman Rockman. This guy is Americans are demanding the immediate arrest of Ohio Attorney General candidate Elliot Forhan, Democrat, for saying he will kill Donald Trump through capital punishment. I'm going to kill Donald Trump. And then Eric Doherty, go out, like his page on X, says, WTF, we all know what that means. Throw him in jail now. And I don't know what else to say. I want to pull it up and let you hear it for yourself. I don't think that anybody is this stupid. And this guy wants to be the Attorney General of the state of Ohio. So let's play it and see what he has to say.
Hi. This is Elliot Forhan, candidate for Ohio Attorney General. I want to tell you what I mean when I say that I am going to kill Donald Trump. I mean, I'm going to obtain a conviction rendered by a jury of his peers at a standard of proof beyond a reasonable doubt, based on evidence presented at a trial conducted in accordance with the requirements of due process, resulting in a sentence duly executed of capital punishment. That is what I mean when I say that I'm going to kill Donald Trump.
That's what I mean.
Wait a minute.
When I say
This is
I'm
Elliot
going to
Forhan,
kill
candidate for
Donald
Ohio.
Trump.
Wait a minute. This is standard operating practice for Democrats. This is exactly what they do every time. Big Tish James out in New York, she got elected selling the same crap. The guy, the Attorney General in Virginia, he wants to kill some Republicans too. Elected. So this is not unusual speech for a Democrat. This is what's required to get elected. So yeah. I don't know why anybody's surprised by this. This is just typical.
Okay, so now we have candidates for statewide offices using hyperbolic, crazy language, trying to be cute, right? Because if anything, this guy's going to get famous real quick. It's like the gentleman, and I'm not going to play the video. I thought about pulling it up, but there's this guy in Arizona, District 12. He does something for the Democrat Party. He's a treasurer, but he's basically calling young ladies who say they support ICE. He's hounding them and walking alongside them, saying the 4-letter C word to these young girls. That guy, and they put his face up on the internet, and he should become famous. And I hope that this gentleman spends a few years in repenting for what he did. And I will tell you, if a grown man were to shout those obscenities towards my 2 daughters, did you ever see the movie Walking Tall?
Did you? Yeah. With the baseball bat? I think he.
Well, it wasn't a baseball bat, Chris.
Was
it was a 2x4.
Yeah,
it was 2x4. I think I
remember it was a big piece of wood.
I would upgrade from the 2x4 to a 4x4 because a human being like that saying disgusting, utterly despicable things to young girls, that guy is so out of control, which is what this is about. This particular candidate for Attorney General is out of control because he
Well-
thinks he's going to propel himself somehow in a red state to be their head lawyer, the head of the prosecution for the state.
Well, the Attorney General of Arizona also stated that because the ICE agents wear masks, that the stand your ground law applies to shooting them. So we're not. This is common among Democrats to talk about this type of inflammatory language and gin their base up to try and get them to act in a way that benefits the party.
All right. So I really like Rep. Anna Paulina Luna. She's put forth some legislation. She says, I want to be clear, crystal clear. If any individual, particularly elected officials or otherwise, helped plan, fund, coordinate, or cover up the violent insurrection happening now in Minneapolis, they should lawyer up now because investigators are going to follow the facts wherever. Oh, I got to expand it. I'm sorry. Let's read the rest of it. Violence, obstruction, collusion, and corruption from anyone, wherever they may lead. I'm sorry. From anyone will be met with the full weight of the law. And as a member of Congress, I am willing to do everything in my authority to enforce that. Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, so this is Tim Walz's lieutenant governor, is one of the admins of Signal Chat. This means that the state of Minnesota is behind the protest. It's not organic. It's an insurrection at the very top, which could be the sudden change in reversal of field for Tim Walz, because as I was sharing with Chris before the show, suddenly the Metro Police Department of Minneapolis is now out, as of last night, after the conversation with Trump, now has suddenly taken to the streets and is starting to enforce the law. Surprise, surprise, surprise. I think it's much bigger than that. You guys are probably familiar with Tim Burchett. You know Tim, the congressman from Kentucky. He believes this thing is not only the Democrats, it's the Republicans. And he thinks it is in excess of $1 trillion in waste, fraud, and abuse. And he said, I'm done with the chairman of my subcommittees who are basically stalling my legislation to write language in there to truly hold people accountable. So when you know that this is not only the Democrats, because we spend a lot of time, beating up the Democrats, as we should, because bottom line is they are the ones directly responsible for this debacle, this destruction, this chaos that's going on right now, because they're the ones who implemented. No red states implemented sanctuary cities. Only sanctuary cities implemented sanctuary cities. Oh, I thought you were going to say something, Chris.
Well, I have a lot to say. That guy is such a blowhard. He never gets anything accomplished. He talks about this stuff. He's been talking about this fraud and Doge and people in Washington are going to go to jail and blah, blah, blah. He never gets anything done. But he does have an important point, is that the Republicans are as bad as the Democrats when it comes to this sort of stuff.
Did you?
It really
called him a blowhard. I like.
He's a blowhard. He never gets anything done. He likes the most dangerous place for that to be on earth is between that guy and a camera, because he's always in front of the camera talking smack and never getting anything done. So that's
obviously there's no results, is what you're saying.
No results, never. But the Republican Party is when you look at what the Congress has accomplished in the period of time that they've accomplished almost nothing. It's been one of the worst Congresses in terms of legislation passed that we've ever had. And then somebody mentioned, maybe Ryan, the SAVE Act is going to eliminate the Democrat Party. Well, the problem is that it also would make MAGA part of the Republican Party forever. So of course the Senate will never get it passed, and Thune will keep that from being passed no matter what. And he's going to fall back on the institutionalist argument that we can't get rid of the filibuster because then the Democrats will use it. Well, the minute that they take charge, the Democrats are going to get rid of the filibuster, pass everything they want. Yeah. So it's a false argument, but you know,
and they have to get rid of the filibuster.
They have other places and say those kind of things.
They have to get rid of the filibuster because they've been exposed. You know, they've been exposed on how they take care of providing the money. They've been exposed on how they have geeked and tweaked the voter rolls, because they have geeked the voter rolls because they used high technology to pad the voter rolls. That's why none of these states, the blue states, are willing to give their voter rolls up, even though they are mandated by federal law to clean their voter rolls. They're not willing to hand that over to the DOJ when they're subpoenaed, Illinois being one of them. But that in of itself, obviously, the immigration thing, if the Democrat Party doesn't have the funding, the illegal immigration, and then the voter rolls, the corrupt voter rolls, they do lose a lot of ground. However, what does it really matter? Because whether it's the Democrat Party in charge or the Republican House in charge, what have they truly gotten accomplished in the past 12 years, 20 years? They really aren't getting anything done. You know, they talk a good game, like you said, but truly have they done anything, whether it was Pelosi or Kevin McCarthy or Mike Johnson? There isn't. I'd like them to, what's that word they use? Begins with a C, Chris. That codify.
Yeah, they're not going to find a darn thing that Trump did, and which was sort of the point of the whole Greenland thing, is that if you don't codify this in some way that's airtight, you never know who's going to come along after you and undo it all.
And just away it goes. The executive orders only go so far.
Yeah, the executive orders, they just get
so far.
You can get the auto pen to get rid of that. You don't even need a president.
Here's President Trump has touched down and is in Iowa. He's got a speech that he's giving in Des Moines, and Trump was at the Machine Shed. I don't know, Chris, have you ever been to a Machine Shed?
No,
it's kind of like an upscale Cracker Barrel, and they do very well. If you ever get into Iowa,
I thought it was getting taken out to the woodshed, but
no, it's the Machine Shed. It's actually a restaurant, and the food is 10 times better than Cracker Barrel. But his is Trump with Will Cain, and of course, Trump is a big fan of Machine Sheds. He knows the owner, and I think he likes to take a homosac from the Machine Shed. But here's Trump talking about Tom Homan today.
Conversation with Governor Tim Walz. This man has suggested that this is a modern day Gettysburg. He has likened his situation to Anne Frank in the Holocaust. He has said that ICE is your Gestapo army. And then you guys speak on the phone. I'm fascinated by that conversation.
It couldn't have been a nicer conversation. And in fact, I said to my people, I said, it's hard to believe that's the same guy I watch on television, or I watch in a debate not doing so well, or because we had a very reasonable conversation, very good conversation. If you believe the conversation, he'd like to get this thing over with. But think of it, in the whole country, we've done this so much. We have the crime down to a level that nobody ever, I campaigned a little bit on crime, a lot on the border. The problem is I gave you the best border in the history of our country. Nobody wants to talk about it anymore. I did it a long time ago. I was able.
He did. The thing is what I find fascinating about Trump, Chris, is really at the end of the day, if Trump never were the president of the United States of America, how much would that have impacted his life? If he wasn't, what would Trump be doing if he wasn't the 45th and the 47th president of the United States? Would his lifestyle have changed?
He would have had a lot better life. He probably would have made even more money than he made. People say, he took leftists always like to say that he took advantage of being president to make even more money, but he was a money-making machine before he got into office. So it would have just been an extension of that. And he would have had a lot more opportunities because, as we point out many times, until he ran for president, he was everybody's best friend.
Yep.
Now, and then he became everybody's most hated enemy.
Well, so a guy that obviously didn't need this job, but for the love of his country decided to step forward. He gets himself in these positions, and it is truly the art of the deal. And if you haven't read the book, get out there and get a copy of it. Because last week, if I recall correctly, Chris, and correct me if I'm wrong, he was all in for taking Greenland 150%, right? He was going to control it. He was going to dominate. He was, if need be, he was going to take on, as he referred to it, the 2 dog sleds that they had as the defense for the Greenland. And the next thing you know, here he brings to the table the European Union. He brings to the table Denmark, and he brings to the table the United States as a unified force to basically everybody wins. They're happy. The EU's happy. Denmark's happy. And the United States is overjoyed. And now they've come to an agreement of how they're going to move forward. It's the art of the deal. He always comes in. And I think you just saw it there. And I know you said earlier, he had to do something to fix Minneapolis. It is obviously a Midwest metro city that happens to attract the crazies and fraud, and he's got to figure out how to get in there and truly dismantle it, because it's not Memphis and it's not Washington D.C., which I find fascinating that Trump was able to go in and clean up D.C. within a matter of days. He was able to go in and clean up Memphis and had the Democrat mayors of both DC and Memphis complying with everything they wanted to do to bring down crime. But some reason he wasn't getting the cooperation between the mayor of Minneapolis and the governor. And suddenly, as I said earlier, that changed with one phone call. What do you think changed, Chris? You had an opinion, and I want you to share that with our audience here.
I don't think anything changed. I think that they made, well, what they did was, I think they made a deal.
Did I put you on the spot? Are you feeling a little uncomfortable now, Chris?
Well, I was. I'm not. Sometimes I say stuff and then I forgot what I said. So,
join the crowd. That's being over 50
production. I'm not sure what I said a lot of things, so I'm not always sure which thing you're suggesting. Here's what I'm thinking is the deal is. There is a deal there that he struck with Walz, and it may be that I will order. First of all, you got fewer agents in the city. Walz did. Then he also got that I won't pick up ancillary illegal aliens when I'm going after the bad hombres. So that's another concession that Trump made. And it's also something that the base really isn't that happy about, because we want, as a supporter, I voted to have all the illegal aliens.
20 million, roughly 20 million people.
I voted to have them all sent. And I think a good portion of the MAGA base probably agrees with that. And so, I think he's compromising, but he's also not keeping his base up. One of the things you said last show was, well, Trump's got 4 years. Well, really, he only has to the midterms if we don't win the midterms, because he'll be impeached the minute after that. And I think what a lot of people are doing
will it pass the Senate?
He won't actually get thrown out of office, most likely. And that's only about a 15% chance. But he will be constantly harassed and not really able to get anything done. And he'll basically be a lame duck. And that's also why you're seeing.
Sometimes I like.
That's why you're also seeing this movement on Greenland, is because what people are saying in Europe is, oh, just say yes to Trump. None of it will actually go through, and he's a lame duck anyhow. Just ignore it. And there's a lot of people talking about that the same thing is happening with regard to all these deals that he's striking in terms of the tariffs and investment in the United States that will never actually show up, because 2-3 years he's gone. So if you fail to build,
but is he?
nobody's going to do anything.
But is he? Because as the show is entitled, Midterms Slipping Away from the Dems need to control the House of Representatives, which I believe they're not going to. As I said, there's plenty of people saying they're fearful that we are going to lose control of the House. I don't think that that's going to happen. I think that there's too much momentum on the side of Trump. And how I believe that, Chris, is right here. I like to bring the receipts, as Dan Bongino says, and here are the receipts for the midterm.
Blunt questions, because they sort of get at the underlying feelings that people have. So this is about as blunt. Deport all immigrants here illegally. I will note the ABC News poll asked about undocumented immigrants. So we have slightly different questions, but these were all taken within the last month. And there's real uniformity here. That's what I really think you see. You see real uniformity. Deport all immigrants who are here illegally. 55% of the New York Times. Marquette, 64%. CBS News, 57%. ABC News with a slightly different question, 56%. So what you're seeing essentially here is a very clear indication that a majority of Americans, in fact, when they're asked this blunt question, which I believe gets at the underlying feelings, do in fact want to deport all immigrants who are here illegally. There's no arguing with these different numbers, because they're all essentially the same across 4 different pollsters. Feelings towards immigration in this country, feelings towards undocumented immigrants and deporting all of them have become considerably more hawkish. And I think that gives Donald Trump much more leverage to go with the American people and sort of have these hawkish, some might say harsh, different rhetoric, and also issue-based sort of going after immigrants who are here illegally, want immigration levels decreased. This includes legal and illegal immigration. Look at this. Last year, 55%. That is the highest level since the 9/11 aftermath. You go back just to 2020.
And this, again, legal and illegal. So people want less people coming into the country.
Exactly. They want less people coming into the country. Look at that. That's a 14-point rise from 2023. You go back to 2016 when Donald Trump again was running for president the first time, it was 38%. That's a 17-point rise. So the bottom line is more folks want people who are here illegally deported, and their overall feelings towards immigration have become considerably more hawkish.
63% say they're okay with deporting immigrants who are here illegally and arrived in the last 4 years. 87% are good with deporting immigrants who are here illegally and have criminal records.
There you go. Bring the receipts, Chris. Here's the thing. This is why the show's entire. It's sipping away. And I believe that this issue, despite Minneapolis, because as we said, Minneapolis is one city out of all these other metro areas where you're not seeing any of this craziness. So, you know, the old vantage point, what percentage of people does it take protesting and resisting the federal government to change the entire direction of the country? Do you know what that number is, Chris?
5%.
Yeah, something like 3 to 5%. Okay.
Yeah.
That's not going to work. That's not going to work, because now people are onto that, because we all know the answer. What does it take? It doesn't, my stepson, who lives in Minnesota right now, will tell you that on the ground, he lives close enough to Minneapolis. He says it's fascinating. Most of these riots, rallies, protesting isn't thousands of people. I don't know where they're getting these videos of mass people marching in the streets. I think they're old reruns, and we know that they utilize, they dust off old rallies, whatever it might be, where there's a large crowd. He said that really the word on the street in Minneapolis is it's a small fraction of the population of Minneapolis. In fact, here was a good question, Chris. Where are all the Somalians in these protests?
Well, that's
They're not out. I don't see them outside in the freezing temperatures. I don't see Tim Walz outside. I don't see his lieutenant governor.
they're professional protesters. They're people being hired in.
And that's
some of the. I don't know how true some of these posts are where they show, wanted aggressive young men, we'll pay you $6,000 a month to go in there and rough up ICE agents. But it's,
I didn't give credit to that video. That was a CNN. Once again, it's pretty cool when you can have CNN videos basically making your case for you as a conservative opinionator, commentator, as Chris and I. This particular video was shared by Maze. If you're not subscribed to their page, go out to X, Maze More. They put out great content, but Maze says the country is being gaslit right now. Here's some truth to help us keep perspective. January 21, 2025, newly released polling data shows that the majority of Americans support deporting everyone who is in the country illegally. Almost 90% support deporting those in the country who are 90% support deporting those in the country illegally and who have criminal records. The American people were clear and certain about what they wanted. Trump promised mass deportations, and he was elected. 77 million people, won all the swing states, all the blue weather bellwether counties, elected to keep that promise. Democrats just will not let it happen, and with the help of the evil MSM, mainstream media, they are making this country insane. Last year, gang member, human trafficker, wife abuser was deported. Democrats turned that into months-long crusade to save the Maryland man. And we talked about the other instances that they just make it up as they go, but we are being gaslit. And bottom line is, at the end of the day, Trump is still your president. And the sad part for the Democrats, and why I believe it's slipping away, no matter who controls the House, the next president of the United States, I believe, will be J.D. Vance, and his vice president will be Marco Rubio. And there's no question about it. They will implement exactly what we see. If you think if you don't like what Trump's doing, you ain't seen nothing yet. These guys are, I believe, it could be, well, once again, I know we're up against the end of the show.
Yeah.
But here, this should give you a kind of a sample of what is going to happen. And once again, I don't rule out Ron DeSantis is obviously the governor of the great state of Florida, the free state of Florida, and Marco Rubio was a senator from Florida, now the Secretary of State. But the power team that exists in the Republican Party, who does Tim Walz? That was their vice presidential candidate under Kamala Harris. Who do they have? Are they going to get that gal from Congress that has the purple hair that looks like the Wicked Witch of the West? I mean, who are they? Cruella DeVille. Who are they going to put up? AOC, please. I mean, that in of itself is a joke. But this is what they could possibly have to contend with. And I want you to hear this before we end the show today, because I think this is powerful.
No, they would also take over our election system. They pretty much said they want to do that. Val Deming says she also wants the federal government to potentially take over our property insurance, which is, you can just imagine. Maybe that's what the 87,000 IRS agents will do, is run the insurance company. But I mean, the list goes on of the parade of horribles of things they would do. Look, if they were in power, I'm convinced of this now. If they had a filibuster, no filibuster, whatever, and they had been in charge during the COVID, they would have locked down the country. They would have done to the country what they did to New York, what they did to California, what they did to Illinois. That's what they would have done. In fact, Val Demings has said as much. And I think both Demings and Christ are on record as late as I think last summer, asking for another shutdown in the state. They would have spent $4 trillion. They tried to, and even in their infrastructure bill, they brag about only a quarter of that money went to infrastructure. The rest of it went to take on very serious problems like, racist roads and discriminatory trees and whatever else they can think of. And so, look, I'm sorry. I hate to say this about my fellow Americans. These people are out of their minds, and they cannot be allowed to be near power.
These people are out of their mind.
It's funny that they mentioned that stimulus plan, because we saw the failure of green energy this week with these snowstorms and ice storms, and all those solar systems went down. And I saw one, I don't know how true it is, but they were trying to de-ice a wind farm with helicopters.
Well, and still today, because my daughter, my other daughter, the one who lives in Nashville, she was hit directly by that. In fact, her husband, Nashville Metro PD, also a veteran, current, still active duty in the Army National Guard, Jim, he went back to work today. Most of the city was shut down, and it was limited capacity with law enforcement because they don't have the ability down in that area to de-ice anything. But ultimately, bottom line is, like you said, Chris, we have to pray and think about those people. There's still 500,000 people that do not have adequate resources right now, power being one of them, to heat their homes, which, that's terrible. I mean, it's cold down there, and especially if you're from the South, when it gets below, freezing, 30 degrees, where you and I probably would just throw more blankets on, because now we've been in winter long enough that our blood's thin enough out that we can, like me, I was out today doing snow shoveling. It's 24 degrees and I had to take my coat off. I'm like a Minnesotan. So, no, not quite like a Minnesotan. Let's not go there. All right, Chris, we are over time. I've got so much more that we will pick up where we left off with the rest of this on Thursday, which happens to be just a day or two away. But I appreciate all of you joining us today. Continue to go out, like and share, subscribe at the different platforms. Chris and I will be back on Thursday. We're going to try tightening things up a little bit. I mean, I know it was a full show of a lot of boom, 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 hit you, because that's the way it happens when you have an expanse between that chasm, I should say, from Thursday to Tuesday. So much in the news cycle, especially as it hits on Friday, drops on Friday, comes back on Monday, and then we're here on Tuesday. But we're going to be back on Thursday. But before we leave, we definitely, obviously, as I always like to do, pray us all out. Dear eternal and gracious Father, we thank you. We thank you for showing us truth. And it is out there. And it does come from you. We also are mindful and prayerful for all those people impacted by this crazy storm that just came through the middle part of our country and has devastated so many lives. We pray for the people who are seeking shelter, who are seeking resources to exist and stay alive and stay warm. So we pray for them. I hope that you're lifting up people and that they're coming to the aid of their fellow citizens here in this country. Lord, we continue to ask you to guide us and lead us in all that we do and say, and we pray all these things in the precious name of Jesus. And I say amen, and I love you, and I know Chris loves you, but Jesus loves you more. We will be back on Thursday, but until then, I bid you farewell.